You can't like trans your way out of an affordability crisis. It's not going to happen. When people are experiencing financial hardship, maybe for a brief moment they can forget that when you eliminate some of their perceived enemies that you created for them. But no amount of we're really sticking it to the transgenders is going to make people feel like they have their more money in their pockets. Now let's get to the other thing. The Supreme Court is lifting restrictions on LA immigration stops. Amazing. As if it couldn't get any worse. SCOTUS just approved this unironically. Yep. Pretty much.
Is Eyewitness News with live breaking news.
And good morning, I'm John Gregory. Breaking news coming out of the Supreme Court this morning. The High Court clearing the way for federal agents to conduct sweeping immigration operations in Los Angeles. It's the latest victory for President Donald Trump's administration. The justices lifted a restraining order from a judge who found that roving patrols were conducting indiscriminate arrests in L.A. The order had barred agents from stopping people solely based on their race, language, job, or location.
Chicago bracing for the arrival of National Guard troops as President Trump doubles down on his claim they're needed to tamp down on what he says is out of control crime.
We could solve Chicago very quickly, but we're going to make a decision as to where we go over the next day or two.
Over the weekend, Trump sharing a manipulated image of himself with a twist on a quote from the movie Apocalypse Now. The caption says, "I love the smell of deportations in the morning," and the line, "Chicago about to find out why it's called the Department of War." Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson firing back, saying Trump wants to occupy our city and break our Constitution. Trump pushing back.
We're not going to war. We're going to clean up our cities.
Thousands of Americans hitting the streets of Chicago and D.C., protesting against the president's threats and deployment of some 2,000 National Guard troops to the nation's capital. For weeks, the president has threatened to do the same.
The video skipped? No, this is, I'm going to get back to the Supreme Court decision in a second. Hold on. I'm going to get to it. 1 second.
Other Democratic-run cities and states.
I have the Aaron Melnick thread. One of my favorite immigration attorneys that I rely on as a resource.
Why target Chicago and Boston when there are cities and red states with higher crime rates?
Yeah. Really higher than Chicago?
There are, like Memphis and St. Louis.
Excuse me. Do you know how many people were killed in Chicago last weekend? 8. You know how many people were killed in Chicago the week before? 7. You know how many people were wounded? 74 people were wounded. You think there's worse than that? I don't think so.
But FBI statistics from 2024 show that several cities in red states, including Memphis and St. Louis, have significant...
By the way, I don't like this. Let's send the National Guard to other red states instead of Chicago, instead of blue states where black people live. I don't really like that, because it's just like kind of comes with this recognition that like they're hypocrisy baiting, but it still obviously has the it still obviously comes with this like the recognition of this falsehood that the National Guard is actually a solution to crime. Okay? Why are we accepting the premise that the National Guard is solving crime at all? That's not the case. That's not the reality. And it's strange. You know, this is not a solution at all, and it's certainly not a long-term one regardless. Oh yeah, if it was, so what? If he turns around and says, "Okay, I'm sending the National Guard to Memphis," are you going to be happy with that? I won't be. I'm just using this as a way to, you know, explain to you that like the liberal talking points in this regard doesn't work, and it fails to address the problem with Trump's actions
significantly higher murder rates than Chicago. It shows Chicago has 17.5 murders per 100,000 people, while the rate is 40.6 for Memphis and 54.1 for St. Louis. But the Windy City did see a particularly violent Labor Day weekend. This as the administration escalates its immigration enforcement. DHS says ICE raids have now launched in Boston, just days after authorities detained more than 300 South Korean nationals during a raid at a Hyundai plant in Georgia. That operation rattling America's close ally, which had promised to invest $350 billion in the U.S. Trump looking to reassure South Korea, now proposing the country and foreign companies doing business in the U.S. help train Americans for jobs.
ICE was doing right because they were here illegally. But we do have to work something out where we bring in experts so that our people can be trained so that they can do it themselves.
Now, that Hyundai incident is raising questions as to whether the president's deportation plan is clashing with his economic goals. Now, the president is brushing off the latest jobs report, but many economists say it is President Trump's tariffs and his immigration crackdown that are causing some real cracks in the economy.
We're going to begin, though, with the growing tensions over President Trump's threats to send troops into more big cities. There were large demonstrations over the weekend, this one in Washington, where the National Guard is already on the streets there, and then in Chicago, which the president says could be his next target. Well, a new CBS News poll shows that most Americans, 61%, oppose the idea of National Guard troops being sent to their area. Ed O'Keefe is at the White House. Ed, good morning. We also saw some major immigration crackdowns this weekend, too. So where do you want to start?
Well, Gail, we'll start with this. The Trump administration has started an immigration enforcement operation dubbed Patriot 2.0 in Boston, targeting what it calls the worst criminals. And it's just one of several Democratic-led cities the White House is focusing on. Top officials aren't ruling out asking for backup from the National Guard. Taking in some tennis at the U.S. Open on Sunday, President Trump also had to hit away questions about his intentions in Chicago after posting this manipulated image with a caption using a twist on a famous line from the Vietnam War movie Apocalypse Now, saying, "I love the smell of deportations in the morning." And after rebranding the Department of Defense on Friday, the president suggested the Windy City's about to find out why it's called the Department of War. Top Illinois leaders, including Democratic Senator Tammy Duckworth, denounced the president.
If that's what he's declaring, then let me make it clear. It would be an illegal order to declare war on a major city, any city within.
It's crazy because it's an admission that it's a military occupation, even if it's like tongue in cheek, which is, of course, illegal. Not that it fucking matters. Nothing matters anymore. But while I don't normally do this that much, I can't help but try to imagine what the Republican response would look like if Barack Obama was like, "We're invading Texas." Like, Texas gonna learn today what the American military looks like. He didn't do that, and yet people in Texas acted as though he might do it hypothetically.
The United States by the President of the United States.
Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker agreed, saying his state won't be intimidated by a wannabe dictator. But Trump responded on Sunday.
We're not going to war. We're going to clean up our cities. We're going to clean them up so they don't kill 5 people every weekend. That's not war. That's common sense.
White House border czar Tom Homan says Chicago and other so-called sanctuary cities should absolutely expect stepped-up immigration enforcement this week and doesn't rule out asking for help from the National Guard.
The National Guard are always on the table. We got to send additional resources to the problem areas, which are sanctuary cities.
New CBS News polling shows immigration and deportation issues are by far the most important issues Republicans are now judging the Trump administration on. Stand up, fight back! Thousands who protested in Chicago over the weekend and attended a Mexican Independence Day parade worry about what's to come.
It is a concern every day going out the house and being with my family or my friends. Something is going to happen.
Now, when he got back here last night from the tennis, the president was asked if he had plans for Chicago this week. He responded, no, not really, but said they were going to go someplace and that a decision would be made about where to go and what will happen over the next day or two. Tony?
We know you'll be on it, Ed. Thank you very much.
2 new polls out from CBS and NBC News show most Americans do not approve of how President Trump is doing his job. It's a different story with his base. The CBS News poll pegging his approval rating among Republicans at 91%, though. The new polls coming as Trump puts his focus.
It's pretty crazy. Virtually everything that I predicted would be unfolding is happening with spectacular speed. But I did not think it would happen this fast. I genuinely did not think that it would swing this fast. But to be fair, I also did not think Trump would fire off on all cylinders, push in every avenue. Now, of course, there's this poll that came out as well from Gallup. Is immigration a good thing for the USA? Yes, 79%, highest ever. No, 17%, lowest ever. To which I tweeted, you might have noticed that this number doesn't dip below 50%. It never dipped below America's views on immigration being a net positive. Has never dipped below 50%. Something I kept yelling at Dems throughout the election about. America is a nation of immigrants. Even at the peak of anti-immigrant sentiment, polls showed they favored conditional amnesty over mass deportation. That's it. I told you people were going to be very upset with Trump's mass deportation policies, and they haven't even kicked into the highest stage that he claimed he was going to kick it to. I told you this. And the discontent is rising. Let's take a look at the two key groups that have turned on Trump since the election.
On deploying the National Guard onto the streets of D.C. while implementing hardline immigration tactics. CNN Chief Data Analyst Harry Enton is here to run the numbers on all of this, and we do have some fresh numbers today. So, Harry, what are they telling us?
Yeah, I think they're telling us what we know about the Trump presidency is that Americans don't like it. So why don't we just take a look at these new polling that we have, and he remains underwater. Look, the CBS News poll, look at that. He's 12 points underwater. You want to go over to NBC, you want a different network? You can go to a different network, but it's the exact same story. 14 points underwater, double digits on this. This has been the story throughout much of the Trump presidency. He remains underwater as we get past Labor Day, Jessica.
And just how consistent have Trump's ratings been?
Yeah, okay. So this to me was the fascinating thing because, you know, I come on either every Saturday or Sunday or sometimes like this weekend, both days, and I talk about, oh, Trump's approval rating, he's underwater. I come up with some witty line or some line I think is witty, like he's more underwater than the Little Mermaid or something like that. And I decided to actually look, okay, how long has this dude been underwater? All right, so let's take a look at it. All right, negative net approval rating for Trump every single day in my aggregate polls since March 12th. Since March 12th, in terms of number of days, 180 days in a row he has been underwater. That is basically half a year. You know, the NFL season started this week. You basically have to go back to the end of the last NFL season to find a day in which Trump was above water. The bottom line is he has been swimming with the fishes for a very long period of time, Jessica.
And what groups has he lost ground with?
Okay, so, you know, we're talking about the fact that he was last positive. You got to go back before March 12th. So what has changed? What has changed since February, which was the last full month in which he was above ground? Well, take a look here. Trump's net approval rating among age 18 to 29. We're looking at the CBS News poll, but it holds true in the average as well. He was +2 back in late February. Look at where he is now. My God, that is a 32-point drop since the beginning of this year. How about Hispanics? He was at -6, a little bit underwater, but not too bad. But look at where he is now, -34 points. What is that? That's a 28-point drop since February. These, of course, were two groups that he exceeded expectations with back in the 2024 election, did much better than the traditional Republican has this century. But now these groups have absolutely moved away from him, and he is way underwater, 30 points and 34 points underwater. Those two groups have moved away from him in tremendous fashion, and it goes a long way in explaining why his overall approval rating, his net approval rating, has fallen through the floor and been negative for such a long period of time, Jessica.
And what issues does he do well with?
Okay, so there are a few things that I think that are so important to figure out here. Okay, so we're talking about groups, right? Is there any place any place where Donald Trump does well with. Well, let's talk about issues first. Okay, Trump's net approval rating. I got crime, immigration, foreign policy, the economy, trade. There's a whole slew of red, and this isn't Republican red. This is negative red, Jessica Dean. -2 points, -3 points, -12 points, -14 points, -17 points. On all the key issues of the day, he is underwater, Jessica. No wonder you can't survive in a presidency having a positive net approval rating when you're underwater on all of these different issues. And of course, crime and immigration were two of his best issues, and now he's underwater on all of them. And then, of course, the economy, which was the reason he was reelected in the first place. This is the one I really circle here. He's 14 points underwater, which basically looks pretty much like those CBS News and NBC News polls, which have him at -12 and -14 points. I'll point out one last little thing. I'm going to jump ahead a question because I just feel like I'm in such a role, Jessica, and I just feel like the energy with me.
I told you, man. I told you. I told you this was going to happen. Ages 18 to 34 have the Gallup poll now has a the lowest ever positive approval of capitalism. 42% have a negative approval of capitalism. Okay? Trends in America's positive ratings of capitalism and socialism. We got to get those numbers up, obviously. But for ages 18 to 34, -11%. As in, they have a higher they have a higher disapproval of capitalism than an approval of capitalism. 35 to 54, split 50 to 44 plus 6, and 55 plus 62 to 35 plus 24. Among those without a college degree, it is a 47-48 split, favoring the negative side. For those who have, for those devoid of a college education, who, you know, capitalism is over even harder, they have a higher disapproval of capitalism than those who have a college degree. College graduates favor capitalism 58 and disfavor it by 39%. So whenever people talk about how, like, oh, all these like socialists, all these anti-capitalists, like they're all college graduates, they're all college children or whatever. That's not the case. College liberals have a higher chance of attaining jobs, keeping jobs, making more money in the long run, and therefore have a more positive opinion over it. Amongst Democrats, the negative opinion of capitalism is at 55%. 42% have a positive, so it's -13. For the GOP, it is obviously a +50, so we know who loves capitalism. And for independents, it's a +6. If you look at men broadly, it's a +31%. It's a +31 for capitalism. Amongst women, it's -6. College really do brainwash people into being liberals, but in the political definition sense, yeah. When people say college brainwashes people into becoming liberals, they don't realize that it's not like a normal liberal. It's liberal as the correct, like, right-wing political term, liberalism.
Let us stop you.
Thank you very much. So we see all this negative, but the thing that you pointed out at the beginning that I think is so important, what is the one saving grace for Donald Trump right now? And that is the Republican base. What are we talking about here? Well, take a look here. Republicans who approve of Trump. Well, in the CBS News poll back in February, look at this. It was 90%. Look at where it is now. You mentioned it at the top. It's at 91%. As long as this Republican base sticks with him, as long as he's hearing the good news from the conservative talk radio host, as long as he's hearing the good news from the folks out there on the right, he's going to think he has very strong support. So I don't think that Donald Trump is going to do anything differently as long as this 91% holds. And as I said, it's steady as ever because that's actually a point higher than it was in February, Jessica.
All right, Harry Enton.
Bro, this is exactly like Trump won now.
Running the numbers as always. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And let's bring in CNN senior political commentators David Urban and Van Jones. David is a Republican strategist. Van worked for the Obama administration, and they've both held numerous other positions since then, but that at least gives you a good working idea. David, let's start first with you. Sometimes I have to prompt you with a whole question, but Harry just went through a lot of data. What did you think about all that?
Yeah, listen, so Harry's great at that. And what he didn't tell you, though, and what Harry would admit to, is that Donald Trump's ceiling, ever since he's been a candidate, has been 44%. That's the number in that YouGov poll that just came out this morning. The CBS YouGov poll is at 44%. By the way, that's up 2% since the last poll in July. And so he's consistently polled that 44% approval rating. And so, you know, that's kind of where he was at when he won the election in 24. It's where he's been at consistently. And as Harry points out, he's up a percentage point with Republicans. And so I don't think that, you know, that Rome is burning here. I think that Trump is continuing to do what he did. He's delivering on the messages that on the immigration and cracking down on crime that won him the election in 24, and he's being rewarded among the base for it.
What do you think, Van?
Well, look, I think that if I were Republicans, I'd be worried about that Latin number. They scared the living bejeebers out of us in November when you saw this stampede of brown voters rushing to Donald Trump. We said, holy crap. And that was the whole ball game. And then you got a bunch of young people as well. And so that's why you've seen the therapy bills for Democrats going through the roof, because we had this fantasy that we were always going to be the party of black, brown, and young voters. And suddenly we're just the party of African-American voters, and even we didn't come out as strong as we usually do. Trump could have kept all that.
Yeah, nothing to work on there, by the way. Nothing to consider, nothing to work on, no issues here. Democrat base of support capsizing in and of itself, but no reason to ask questions.
To talk to you, let's start with the president's overall approval numbers.
Analysis. Gen Z women, the most anti-Trump group. That's not surprising. They were the most anti-Trump group even during the election. Okay.
In this poll, do most Americans approve of the job he's doing?
Yeah, well, you showed some of those issues a minute ago, and what that adds up to is a 43% approval rating in our new poll. This is a Decision Desk poll. Again, this is all adults here. This is voters, potential voters, so we're kind of casting a wide net, but a 43% approval rating for Trump. That is pretty much at the level it's been now for a few months for much of this second term for Donald Trump. And even it's sort of been similar to the level we saw back during his first term. And one of the key ingredients to this, you mentioned too, the economy. That's the issue voters cite more than any other as the most important issue to them right now. And when you ask folks how Trump is doing specifically on inflation and the cost of living, again, we've seen this for a few months now. He's under 40%. He's at 39%. Some of his worst marks from voters coming on the economy.
I told you that no amount of we're really sticking it to the transgenders is going to make people feel like they have more money in their pockets. Okay? Like you can't like trans your way out of an affordability crisis. Okay. It's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. When people are experiencing financial hardship, maybe for a brief moment, they can forget that when you eliminate some of their perceived enemies that you created for them. Okay. But they're going to go back and when they see that they can't afford shit, guys, I don't know what Israel did to the flotilla, but if you think I'm going to stop my coverage right now and work off of like OSINT Twitter to try to figure out whether or not the flotilla was attacked by Israel off the coast of Tunis, you are out of your mind. We will get to it in a minute. We will get to it. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm saying we will get to it. Please stop.
On inflation, and that is a departure from his first term when his best marks tended to come on those subjects.
You talked about people, of course.
Francesca Albanese tweeted about this, bro. Oh, shit. Francesca Albanese tweeted about it. My bad, bro. Let me cover it right now. Shut the up. I said I'm going to get to it. Just Jesus Christ, why is this so difficult for people to comprehend?
Thinking about inflation and the cost of living, what other important issues are Americans thinking about as most important for them, and how do they think the president's doing?
He gets his best marks on border security and immigration, where he exceeds his approval rating there. We also asked this time about deportation, so not just border security and immigration, but we asked about deportations as well. His numbers fell a little bit, but he's 47% approval on border and immigration. He's 43% approval when you ask about deportations.
I also want to ask you about something that the president talks about. In some ways, he was appealing directly, I think a lot of people thought, to young men. So this poll shows that there's a wide gender gap, apparently, among Gen Z Americans. How wide is that gap, and what's fueling it?
Well, it's a major divide that has to do with politics, but I think takes in a lot more. That's the surprising finding in this poll for us. So let me take you through it. Gen Z, we're talking about adults under 30 years old, sort of the new rising generation here. And take a look here, just when it comes to attitudes towards Donald Trump. Again, we told you, with all voters nationally, with all Americans nationally, I should say, he's at 43% job approval. With men under 30, 47%, so a little bit better. But with women under 30, look at this, way, way under his national level, just 26% approval for Trump right there. So that's one of the things we find. Not only is there a huge difference in Gen Z between men and women when it comes to their attitudes towards Trump and politics, this group right here, Gen Z women, is the most anti-Trump group you're going to find any generation gender combination. Most anti-Trump, most politically progressive, and these big differences between men and women, we saw them. Look, again, this is the rising generation, the emerging generation. We thought we'd get a portrait. We asked about some basic questions about what they think about life, about the future, about priorities. And take a look at the difference we found here when you do gender and politics. Again, this is just Gen Z here. Look at
this. Was really interesting. First of all, girly pop nation, rise up. Okay. Girly pop nation, rise the fuck up. Straight up. Secondly, amongst the Gen Z women, they've been the most steady anti-Trump coalition in the country. The Gen Z numbers that actually swung dramatically from being firmly anti-Republican to getting close to like a 50-50 split in the Trump direction came mostly from men. Gen Z men. But even then, as I told you, they will realize that it's still business as usual and that none of the things that the Trump administration claimed it would do for these guys is going to happen. And therefore, they're also going to inevitably experience tremendous discontent. And it's already happening. So the Gen Z support numbers have diminished. Okay? Chatters, being a liberal is not woke just because you are a woman. I mean, it doesn't matter. This isn't to say that they are all libbed up or whatever. Yeah, I already covered this as well. Earlier today, he's lost tremendously from February till now with both the Hispanic voting bloc and also with the age 18 to 29. They only care about abortion. That's not true. No, that's not true either. Because this accounts for what? What percentage of white women then? What, like, do white women not care about abortion? I guess they don't. No, women are more progressive. Younger women are more progressive in their politics than men are. It's reflected in virtually every other demographic polling that's conducted, every psychographic profile report that comes out. They're just more progressive.
We gave them a whole bunch of choices here about what do you think defines success in life to you? Asking a basic question.
Left is gender essentialism. This isn't gender essentialism. It has nothing to do with that. I suspect that the more progressive aspect of their politics is because by and large, first of all, we're looking at data, not gender essentialism. This is slated to change, as evidenced by the fact that it did change. Like Gen Z approvals of Donald Trump swung by 30%, by 30 points. That's huge. That's a huge shift. Clearly, it's not essentialism in any capacity. But the reason why I personally think this is the case is because, like, women have better educational attainment as it stands, and they have a better job opportunities as it stands currently. So it causes them to have, I guess, a more like a different approach. But I think education probably plays a formative role in their development, in their opinions, in the way that they see the world. But the reason why you see this kind of like gender divide in politics comes from not women being more empathetic or whatever, but instead men having overall a sense of entitlement around like what society was supposed to be designed on and what they haven't actually achieved. When you're told that, like, as a man, certain things are supposed to come for you, and then you don't actually get any of those expected outcomes, and you can't get a decent job, and your educational attainment is worse off, then you are going to find yourself at the mercy of reactionary politics. I think that's where it comes from.
Question. Gen Z men under 30 who voted for Donald Trump, their number one answer was having children. That makes, in their view, more than anything else for a successful life. Gen Z women under 30 who voted for Harris, that same option, having children, dead last. Look at that. First in one group, last in the other. Being married right at the bottom there, too, for Gen Z women who voted for Harris.
Also, it's really funny because they present this as like this is, dude, I mean, obviously, I looked at these numbers before. What I found really interesting was that men that voted for Harris, as opposed to women that voted for Harris, or not as opposed to men that voted for Trump, their priorities were almost identical to the women that voted for Harris. One other thing that actually was important here to address is that outside of the men that voted for Trump, women who voted for Trump also had similar priority structure to the women that voted for Harris. So it's the only group, Gen Z men who voted for Trump, that have this like obsession with having children being like a top thing. Is really interesting. Achieving financial independence obviously is still an incredibly high priority. Obviously, that's hugely important. It's hugely important. It's all about the economy. It's all about getting a good job.
Being married near the top for men. And how about this for a difference, too? Having emotional stability, one of the most important factors in a successful life, cited by Gen Z women who voted for Harris, dead last when you're talking about Gen Z men who voted for Trump. These are basic core priorities, concepts about what makes life a successful one. And they couldn't be more at odds in some of these cases between these two groups. I think that was the most surprising finding in this poll, Yamiche.
Wow, Steve, that is incredible to see Gen Z men saying that having children's number one and Gen Z women saying that that's dead last. A great day to have you at the big board. Thank you so much, Steve.
And even ask what your priorities, ask what you say are signs of a successful life. Many probably don't see it as a marker of success because it's not hard to have a child. Yeah. Where's the poll? I want to look at the polls a little bit further as well. Like the Twitter link. Oh, here it is. Thank you. RNBC News Desk decision poll asked Gen Z adults, 18 to 29-year-olds, what they consider important to success in life. The combination of gender and politics are produced two very different sets of priorities. For men who voted for Trump, 34% said having children is what they consider important to a successful life. For women who voted for Harris, the number one response at 51% was fulfilling job/career. But obviously, financial independence and fulfilling job/career is still almost as equally as important as having children for men who voted for Trump as well. Okay? Financial independence and fulfilling job and a career is almost as important for men who voted for Trump as is having children. For women who voted for Harris, fulfilling job and career is 51%, and it's almost as important as having money to do the things you want. Okay? So ultimately, it doesn't really matter. But as far as women who voted for Trump, look at that. Women who voted for Trump said financial independence is 40%. So this is what I find very interesting, which is that women, regardless of their political identity, care about financial independence. Okay? That's the number one thing that they care about. Men who voted for Kamala Harris also care about having a fulfilling job and a career at super high rates. The only group that has the number one thing that they care about being having children is men who voted for Donald Trump. A Nepo teaching about financial independence law? Wait, who are you talking about? Me? If you're talking about me, I don't teach financial independence at all. So I'm like confused by that. Do you think that's what this channel is? I do still think it's ultimately all the same. Financial independence, having a fulfilling job and career, these things mean the same for the most part. Okay? And it's still important for men who voted for Trump as well. Financial independence is 33% versus having children is at 34%. That's not that significant of a difference. This shows you exactly what the problem is for many Gen Z, something that I've repeated over and over again, which is that their issues are born out of their lack of hope for a better tomorrow. They don't have good jobs. They don't have good opportunities. They don't feel like they can achieve the number one thing that they care about, which is financial independence, okay? Or having a good job, a good paying job. It's that simple. Now I'm going to show you the really stupid side of this story as well. There's even a dumber side of the story. This woman that's like seemingly taking credit for this raid.
I've heard.
The woman who triggered the ICE raid at Hyundai is now running for office. She got 475 Korean workers arrested by screaming illegals on TikTok. Turns out they were subcontractors flown in for construction. No proof they were undocumented. No proof they weren't. Just one raised with a phone and a thirst for attention. Now she wants power.
The biggest crock of shit I've heard so far since the Hyundai plant in Ellabelle, Georgia was raided was that the Koreans and the illegals will do jobs that Americans can't do or won't do. Well, that's bullshit, because there were union workers out there who weld, who are safety certified, who are skilled, who those people for decades have built this country. The union and laborers built this country, but they don't want to pay skilled American laborers that are safety certified because it costs them.
Bro, the sheer number of people on a job site like that one is far larger than 300. They didn't just bring in Korean workers like to make up for the entire facility. What the
Too much. They want to hire illegal labor and people on H-1B visas from foreign countries because they save money. Yet they give them millions of dollars in tax cuts for allegedly creating jobs for Georgians that never happens. But they shit all over our skilled laborers because they would have to pay them more, even though they are skilled and safety certified. They would rather pay $150,000 OSHA lawsuit like they did with the guy that died on the forklift out there. That place was one big accident waiting to happen. So the contractors, the corporations will hire illegal labor over Americans, not because Americans won't do the job. It's because the Americans are skilled, safety certified, and they know their worth.
Oh my God. Republican candidate take credit for Trump immigration raid at Hyundai plant. Wait, let me get the... Yeah, that's what it is. She was doing this for a pro-union. She was doing this from a pro-union perspective. We got the Supreme Court ruling coming in right now as well. Hold on. but I want to remove the paywall on that Rolling Stone article so I can actually read it. Hold up. Yeah, here. Tory Branham is a Marine Corps veteran, firearms instructor, and a Republican candidate for Georgia's 12th congressional district. She's also a proud America First supporter of President Donald Trump. On Thursday, as agents of Immigration Customs Enforcement were still carrying out a raid at a Hyundai plant in rural Bryan County, just outside the district Branham is running to serve, she expressed pride in something else, her purported role in causing the raid, which resulted in the arrest of 450 people. According to the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. How do I feel about it? Good. I have no feelings about the law. What is right, and what's wrong is wrong. The raid is one of the largest in ICE history, eclipsing a raid at a California cannabis farm that netted some 300 undocumented workers. Branham says the Hyundai megasite, which opened in March and was hailed as a major economic development win for Georgia Governor Brian Kemp, has been subject of rumors for months that undocumented immigrants were working there or on construction sites. Wait, hold on. Or on construction sites within the massive 2,900 acre complex. 3 workers have died of the construction at the site. Aware of the safety issues and rumors about undocumented immigrants working there, Branham says she came into contact with a local Spanish-speaking union worker who had access to the site. The Hyundai plant itself is not union. Many workers there are from South Korea and are in the United States on H-1B visas. The South Korean government confirmed to the New York Times that some South Korean workers were detained by immigration agents. While the plant itself is not union, construction sites at the facility have been staffed by union tradesmen, some of whom have complained about undocumented workers and unsafe conditions. The union worker who came into contact with Branham recorded some conversations they had with people, she tells Rolling Stone. She claims the union worker had discovered that undocumented immigrants were working on the construction projects at the plant. They were a union member, and the people confided in them because they had helped them win lawsuits over unsafe working conditions, Branham says. She declined to name the union worker who acted as the informant. From there, Branham says she reached out to ICE on the agency's website. On Thursday, as agents for ICE, Homeland Security Investigations, Customs and Border Protection, and U.S. Marshals, DEA, and the FBI were still raiding the facility, Branham took credit for it on Facebook. For months, folks have whispered about what's going on behind those gates. Now truth is finally catching up, Branham wrote on her Facebook page. I reported this site to ICE a few months ago and was on the phone with an agent. The raid began with mass agent telling workers that DHS had a warrant. We're Homeland Security. We have a search warrant. Second video from the plant. We already saw all that stuff. In brief comments to local press, Schrank says the raid was a judicially authorized enforcement operation and that the agencies thank the public for all of the thoughts as we conduct this operation exceptionally safely thus far. Raids like Thursday's become a common sight in communities. Amid Trump's mass deportation campaign, ostensibly aimed at undocumented immigrants who have committed crimes, the raids have also resulted in the detention and arrest of men and women without criminal histories. Panic and fear have ravaged migrant communities nationwide as mass agents swarm workplaces and neighborhoods in the search of, in air quotes, illegal immigrants that Trump and his supporters like Branham want to see removed. Now, one of the most damaging aspects of this is that the racism required to be able to conduct these sorts of affairs, at least in broad daylight, maybe not even at a job site, is when you have to do stop and frisk, basically. And a new Supreme Court decision has allowed ICE to do that. If you are suspected of being brown, you can just now, with the allowance given to you by the Supreme Court as of yesterday, you can do so. You can just, ICE agents will come and be like, you're looking non-white to me, boy. Get over here, and they could detain you. They were already doing that, but now the Supreme Court has said it's also fine to do. So just so you understand. Mass immigration agents like those in Bryan County on Thursday, a site that was once shocking but has become commonplace, were primarily from ICE's enforcement removal operations and DHS's investigative arm, HSI. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court has backed the administration's claims that it can send undocumented immigrants to third-party countries to which they have no ties. Migrants from Mexico and South and Central America have been sent to Rwanda and Eswatini, prompting warnings from human rights groups about unsafe conditions in these countries. So I don't even know if her call was actually, if it played a pivotal role or not, but she is seemingly taking credit for it. Fantastic. This dipshit. All right. Anyway, let's get to the Donald Trump
You're
note
watching
now.
The World with me, Yalda Hakim. More on the French political crisis shortly. For now, breaking news from Washington. Democrats have released a suggestive birthday letter to Jeffrey Epstein, signed apparently by Donald Trump. The president firmly denies having anything to do with the letter. Well, let's get the very latest and go to our U.S. correspondent, James Matthews. And James, just bring us up to date, because this has developed in the last half hour or hour or so.
It has, yeah. The story, Yaldo, you'll remember, goes back to July. The Wall Street Journal reported that this hand drawing existed, signed Donald, and they were making the link to Donald Trump, although he denies all association. Basically, and I think we can take a look at it because it has now been published, this is a hand drawing of the body of a woman said to have been collected by Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein's co-conspirator, now in jail. This was a part of a birthday book,
Amazing.
you know, pulled from friends and given to him before his conviction for his 50th birthday. Now, that woman's form, signed below the waist, Donald, you know, it has, at the top it says voiceover, and
I love that they have to walk through this. I love having like serious commentators and journalists have to like explain this, what they call body drawing. It's so funny.
there is what presumably is an imagined exchange between somebody called Donald and somebody called Jeffrey. Remember, Trump and Epstein were friends for many years. The bottom line reads, "A pal is a wonderful thing. Happy birthday, and may every day be another wonderful secret." Now, bear in mind, there are many questions about the association between Trump and Epstein and the extent to which there may have been improper associations. Remember, Trump flew on Jeffrey Epstein's private jet. There are pictures of him at parties surrounded by female partygoers and others. So one imagines that this can only give traction to those questions, but also to calls for the release of the Epstein files. This image was handed over by lawyers.
So what's up? Donald Trump wanted to sue Rupert Murdoch and Wall Street Journal for saying this report was fake. What's up? What's up with that? Caroline Leavitt had some choice words for this. Said, the latest piece published by the Wall Street Journal proves this entire birthday card story is false. As I've said all along, it's very clear President Trump did not draw this picture and he did not sign it. President Trump's legal team will continue to aggressively pursue litigation. Furthermore, the reporter Joe Palazzolo, who wrote this hatchet job, reached out for comment at the exact same minute he published his story, giving us no time to respond. This is fake news to perpetuate the Democrat Epstein hoax. 2 authenticated letters from the real Donald Trump that sold at 2 separate auctions from Andrew Feinberg, White House correspondent for The Independent. Compare them with the signature on Epstein's birthday letter. Uh-oh. This guy claims, yeah, the D is completely separate and does not... Come on, man. Come on. These guys, oh my God, these guys are on cope mode, dude. They are so, oh, Jesus Christ. They're out of control with the copium. They're like, Donald Trump did not write that. I promise.
For Epstein's estate, they say in handing over this material.
I'm just wondering when they take the extra leap, okay? I'm wondering when they take the extra leap, the leap of faith, and just firmly commit to the notion that pedophilia is ultimately a good thing if Trump is doing it. Because we're going to get there at a certain point, okay? We're going to get there. I joke about this stuff and it ends up happening. I'm not even joking no more. I'm telling you right now, man. There's they already are testing the waters with a white hat pedophile shit,
Material that they found no evidence of a client list. Remember, there is this wish, this desire, this call for a list of names associated with Epstein. His lawyers, or for his estate, they're saying there is no list of people.
Someone said Tim Pool new meta is that Trump was an informant and can't release the files because it would blow his cover. Please send me that link. I need to see it. I need to see that. I need to see that. You have to show me.
people who might have been sex trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein. The public, of course, would like to see the whole files and make their mind up. In terms of Trump himself, I mean, this is evidence of sorts. He has denied all association with any drawing, of course, said that he doesn't draw pictures of women. And I can tell you, Yalda, that that denial continues. His press secretary, Caroline Levitt, has posted on X within the past few minutes. She says this: the latest piece published by the Wall Street Journal proves this entire birthday card story is false. As I have said all along, it's very clear President Trump did not draw this picture and he did not sign it. President Trump's legal team will continue to aggressively pursue litigation. Furthermore, the reporter who wrote this hatchet job, as she calls it, reached out for comment at the exact same minute he published his story, giving us no time to respond. This is fake news, says Caroline Levitt.
It's the auto pen. That's right, auto pen. It's the auto pen. The auto pen is the one who did it. What? Tim Pool says victims of Epstein are Democrat bots created to hurt Trump. Oh, hell yeah. So Jeffrey Epstein is just fake. That's a cool narrative. Does the below signature from the Wall Street Journal look like this actual signature from the president? I don't think so. Fake. Epstein card. Letter to 1995, letter to Lillian Volk. 1999, letter to Larry King. Why is it so hard for them to believe that Donald Trump, who was literal best friends with Jeffrey Epstein at the time, would send him this strange letter and sign it? Like, there are a million photos of them side by side. Are we joking? Like, what are these guys denying here? It doesn't make any sense. To deny this is to deny the reality that you can see with your eyes. Like, the actual thing that you should be saying is, oh, it's embarrassing, but he didn't know he was a pedophile. And he stopped hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein after he found out. He sussed out the bad vibes and he didn't hang out with them, unlike Bill Clinton, you stupid libtard. You know? Like, that's what you're supposed to say. The counter, if we lived in like a normal universe where political discourse wasn't just like, nah, I don't believe you. I don't believe my lying eyes either. I clawed them out with my thumbs, libtard. So I don't see these photos no more. Like, that narrative, the proper narrative, the proper counter messaging campaign is supposed to be Donald Trump knew Epstein was bad vibes. He stopped hanging out with him. And yet all these famous Democrats actually hung out with him after he was outed as a pedophile, right? That's what you're supposed to say if you're like even remotely competent as a Republican messenger. The problem is you don't even need to be remotely competent anymore. You can just say, nope, don't believe you. It's fake news. And that's it. Like, there are a million photos of Donald Trump. Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein were filmed together almost as much as Crack and Hunter Biden were filmed together. Okay? It seems like anytime Jeffrey Epstein was out and about, Donald Trump was right there. All right? Hanging out with the guy for a very long time. Just like whenever there's crack cocaine around Hunter Biden, he was like, let me bust out the phone. We have to take a photo of this occasion. You understand? Which is why all these other counter narratives are so stupid. The ones that are being launched by the right are so stupid. Adam says, weirdly underrated how incriminating this is. Literally no plausible innocent explanation. What was the secret enigma they cryptically referred to over the picture of a naked woman? Interior decorating tips? Perhaps a pound cake recipe? Maybe they had a laugh playing Dungeons and Dragons and it was so funny it couldn't be put in letter form. Many possibilities. Yeah. Yeah, the secret enigma that they cryptically refer to is diddling children. Not only doodling, but also diddling, okay? Enigma is an anagram for the word gammon. Oh, stop. Oh, you guys don't have to. You guys, is not enough. It's not enough that he uses the word enigma. You have to do anagrams, man. Please, man. It just stick to what's in front of you, okay? God damn. Holy moly, liberals are so crazy, bro. You have to look for a dog. Donald Trump could literally come out and openly declare that he's a pedophile, and liberals would be like, what is the hidden underlying message here? What is it? I think it's got to be like an American thing, right? It's got to be this like weird American thing where, I mean, I guess everybody does numerology. I remember when I was in Turkey, there was people who would tell me about like different surahs in the Quran, you know? Everybody loves uncovering a deep secret. It's got to be. There's got to be another cryptic thing. Bro said he has a secret enigma that they share with one another. That's it. It's not, it doesn't have to also be an additional layered cake of secrets. And no, I don't think he was drawing a child either. I think he was just drawing a woman. He wasn't purposely drawing like small breasts. Okay. This is just a shittily drawn woman. Okay. Anyway. But there's also additional parts of the Wall Street Journal article that are even more damning. There's a photo of Jeffrey Epstein with a giant novelty check implying Trump sold him a woman for $22,500. The Epstein estate also turned over another letter from the book that references Trump. It came from a businessman and longtime Mar-a-Lago member Joel Pascoe, who made a crude joke about a woman that Trump and Epstein socialized with in the 1990s, according to people familiar with the matter. The Pascoe letter included a photo of a poster board size check for $22,500, which had been mocked up to appear that it was sent from Trump to Epstein. Beneath it, a handwritten caption said, Jeffrey showing early talents with money plus women sells fully depreciated, redacted, to Donald Trump for $22,500. The woman's name is redacted in the image. Pascoe and his attorney didn't respond to a request for comment. A lawyer for the woman said she doesn't know Pascoe and has no knowledge of the letter naming her, which the lawyer called disgusting and deeply disturbing hoax. Trump was listed under the Friends section of the book's table of contents along with Clinton and about 20 other associates, the Journal reported. Trump and Epstein socialized in the 1990s in Palm Beach, Florida. Trump flew on Epstein's private jet, flight logs show. Epstein was photographed multiple times at Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate. Jeffrey showing early talents with money plus women sells fully depreciated, bleep, name, to Donald Trump for $22,500. Showed early people skills too. What is this? Even though I handed the deal, I didn't get any of the money on the gain or game on the goal. What is this? Yeah. I doubt this actually is proof that Epstein sold Trump a woman. The girl? Oh, the girl. Any money on the girl? Yeah, I doubt this is actually proof that Epstein sold Trump a woman, but at the very least, it shows that they at least knew what Epstein was doing and thought it was funny. Oh, even though I handled the deal, I didn't get any of the money or the girl. You found the Tim Pool clip. Let's go, fam. Let's freaking go. Unspeakable. All right. This is from the Majority Report. We'll take a look at that in a second. You know? So, obviously, this doesn't look too good for Donald Trump. Now, not only does this not look too good for Donald Trump, but one of the other idiotic counter narratives that was launched came from House Speaker Mike Johnson. I covered it immediately as soon as it came out. House Speaker Mike Johnson, representative Republican from Louisiana, came out with a hot statement that we had not heard before. One that I had joked about for years and years at this point, that Donald Trump was a white hat pedophile. Okay? Now it turns out that is unironically how these dipshits thought they could get away from this conversation. Mike Johnson said, well, Donald Trump was an FBI informant trying to take down Jeffrey Epstein. Here he is responding to CNN when asked. CNN's Manu Raju. When asked.
What do you mean by that? All right. What I was referring to in that long conversation was what the victim's attorney said. More than a decade ago, President Trump kicked Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago, And he was one of the only people, one of the only prominent people, as everyone has reported, not President Trump, but everybody about him, that he was willing to help law enforcement go after this guy who was a disgusting child abuser, sex trafficker, all the allegations. That's what they heard. So the president was helpful in that. I don't know if I use the right terminology, but that's common knowledge, and everybody knows that. So this is much ado about nothing.
Did the president tell you this specifically about his involvement?
I was recounting what others have said. The president and I have talked about the Epstein evils many times. He's as disgusted by it as everybody else. He has long had a history of acknowledging that, and he has said repeatedly he wants...
Dog, you said he was an FBI informant. The f*** do you mean? And you can't just like common knowledge your way out of this. It's clearly not common knowledge. What do you mean it's common knowledge that he was an FBI informant? Now, what's also really funny about using FBI informant as the term here, as a specific term here, is that FBI informants don't just become FBI informants out of the blue. That still unironically implies that he was diddling children. The FBI caught him and turned him into a state's witness. So even your counter narrative here, this made up thing that you made up, also still cooked Donald Trump. Okay? It still cooked Donald Trump because you came out and you were like, hey, my guy, Donald Trump, was kids. And then the FBI caught him. And then he turned into a state's witness to take out Jeffrey Epstein. So he wasn't just kids for himself. In the aftermath of being caught, he fucked kids for the state. Okay? Because that's what you're saying. Like, you're saying he was raping children for the state, for the betterment of mankind, to take out a guy who was raping even more kids than he was. That's an insane thing to say, dude. You see, Your Honor, my guy Donald Trump wasn't just raping kids for the love of the game. He was doing it for the state. He was doing it for a better, for mankind. He hated it. He hated diddling kids. He just did it for you and me. That's insane, dude.
Everything to come out, all credible information, everything for the American public to decide.
Was he ever asked to wear a wire or anything like that?
I have no idea. No, I'm not saying that. I have no information about that whatsoever. I was repeating what has been common knowledge for a long time. The president was helpful in trying to get Epstein, for the law enforcement to go after Epstein. That's always been my understanding. That's common knowledge. It's the public's understanding. I was not breaking news there. Okay. What I'm trying to emphasize is that the president is as disgusted about this as everyone is. All people of good conscience. We heard from the victims last week. It was gut-wrenching to hear their accounts. Many of them came out here and did it to a broader audience, to the public. But there's as many as 1,000 other victims, hundreds of young women, now some of them middle-aged women, who were subjected to these abuses for a long, long time, and justice is long overdue. So we're not just investigating Epstein and what happened, but why the justice system failed these women for so long. That is why the House Oversight Committee is on this so aggressively, and as you saw the latest developments, I think Chairman Comer and some other members are going down to Florida. They're going down to the Epstein estate to look at visitor laws at the estate. By the way, none of this is encompassed in the discharge petition gambit. This is what the Oversight Committee is tasked to do. That is what they are doing in a bipartisan fashion. You have very aggressive members on both sides of the aisle that are on it, and we are greatly comforted by that. So we fully support it.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Anyway, listen, someone had to diddle. He is a hero. Yeah. In my headcanon, he walked it back because he saw your tweet. Yeah. No. So he walked it back, but you know who's galloping in that direction? Tim Pool.
It's detestable to him. He and I have spoken about this.
Now, there's a couple theories on this. One is that Mike Johnson let slip this statement to try and protect Trump's reputation. There's also that, basically like, oh, did you know he was an FBI informant? Stopping it? That's why. Or I think there's a strong possibility here. I don't know for sure. I'm not saying I trust Trump on any of this stuff. Elon says he's in the files, whatever. Let's get the files and figure it out. But let's at least entertain Did Speaker Mike Johnson maybe accidentally just slip up that Trump was an FBI informant? And the reason why Trump doesn't want the documents released is that they're going to show that Trump was snitching on powerful people.
Bro, this shit's awesome, dude. These guys are so stupid. That's so awesome. Yeah, man. That's why. No, you got it. Yeah, Trump really would hate to look like a hero. He would hate to look like a hero in this Epstein story for sure. Okay? Yeah. Definitely. He would hate to take credit for Jeffrey Epstein's downfall.
It's prominent, wealthy individuals doing untoward things, and the documents are going to show that Donald Trump
guys, listen.
was a snitch.
Listen, we can't in any way have anybody find out that I am snitching on a pedophile.
Where is I want to see the original though. I don't want, no disrespect to Uncle Sam here, but I don't want the interjection and I don't want the commentary. I want to see the OG. Do you guys have the OG? Because you sent me the Majority Report version, but I need to see it. I need to see the OG. I need to see Tim Pool without any cuts, or if there's cuts, I'm gonna be the one pausing it.
But if the documents show that Trump was working with law enforcement to stop this, that's not damaging to Trump's reputation among his voters. It's damaging to Trump's reputation among powerful elites he needs to do deals with.
Oh, that's right, brother. Why didn't I think of this, man? Why didn't I think of this? This is incredible. 236,000 views, by the way. People are so desperate for that copium that Tim Pool is even doing better numbers than he did before for this one. Because if you look at his other videos, like his videos are not doing good. Okay. His videos are doing dog shit. Okay. Chicago Mexican Festival canceled over ICE raids, 20,000, 10,000. There has been a noticeable downturn for all of the OG right-wing content creators. I don't know if you guys noticed that or not. It feels like there is a finite amount of right-wing watchers out there, and they've all gravitated towards Asmongold. Okay? They're all gravitating towards Asmongold. The old guard, Carter is right. I said this already. The old guard of the Republican Party online, their messaging machine is dead. Okay? The Daily Wire, dead. Tim Pool, dead. They got nothing. They got nothing going on. We haven't watched any of their shit either. We haven't watched any of their stuff because, like, they got nothing. You got Fem Shabibo, Brett Cooper, okay? The female Gen Z Ben Shabibo. And you got Asmongold. And you got like a consortium of different, like, Theo Vaughn's, and every now and then they have like right-wing takes or whatever. Theo Vaughn isn't even like a right-winger fully, but you got like, you got Nick Fuentes popping off. You got Tucker Carlson. You got Candace Owens. And you got mostly people that have created this like very different right-wing coalition. Maybe a little bit of Charlie Kirk too, as far as like the old guard. But it kind of feels like no one is touching the Asmongold reign on right-wing content. One thing I've noticed, with the exception of like Charlie Kirk and Asmongold, is that they're also very anti-Israel. Like all of the independent right-wing content creators are openly anti-Israel. Some of them are also openly anti-Semitic, but every single one of them are openly anti-Israel. Even the independent audiences on the right demand anti-Israel content. So like everyone that refuses to do that on the right have been eating dicks and ass nonstop. Okay? Interesting stuff.
So the Democrats might be thinking, it's not. It's going to help Trump. If we leak files showing that Trump stopped Epstein, people are going to cheer for him.
Right.
Trump may be saying, if they find out that I ratted on Bill Gates and Bill Clinton and I was the one actually spying on him or wore a wire or did who knows what, these people aren't going to want to do deals with his business. If Trump was snitching on
So in this universe, Bill Gates has diddled children with Jeffrey Epstein, and Donald Trump knew about it, and Donald Trump is worried that he can't continue doing business with a pedophile? Is that the argument you're presenting right now? That Donald Trump ratted on Jeffrey Epstein for pedophilia, okay? But then also that all these other pedophiles won't be able to keep doing business with Trump if they find out that Trump was the rat? What are you saying? Why the would Donald Trump, if he's so expressly anti-pedophilia, why would he want to continue doing deals with Bill Gates? Also, all of these elites are still working with the White House currently, including Bill Gates. So what the does that mean? That Trump knows that these guys have diddled children but is still working with them? None of this makes sense. This does not make logical sense. Okay? This defies logic. Donald Trump doesn't want the elites to find out that he was the main guy that participated in Jeffrey Epstein's downfall. That's why he just keeps saying it's a Democrat hoax. That's why he keeps saying it's a Democrat hoax, that his name was inserted into the files by Barack Obama and Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton. Who the watches this guy, man? Apparently nobody, except for this video. This video hit. It is the highest amount of views that Tim Pool has gotten in the last couple of months. Apparently, this is the one video where people are like, all right, I'll tune in to see what Tim Pool has to say about this situation.
Prominent world leaders. I'm not saying he did. I'm not saying I believe that's the case. But it could be an explanation. Trump was a snitch. I'm going to put it this way. I'm going to paint Trump in the worst possible light in this regard. Trump only cared about himself. He only cared about his organization. When he heard about what Epstein was doing, he said this.
I guess they believe it. They're saying it's not snitching when it involves the safety and protection of children. Exposing pedos doesn't make you a snitch. It makes you a whistleblower and a hero. Anybody who calls someone a snitch who's trying to out child predators, they deserve the chair also. Epstein is on record saying he thought Trump was involved in taking him down. I love it when decades-old information hits the mainstream like this. It's frustratingly late, but I'm still grateful to finally come around to it. Like, yeah, these guys are unironically so delusional that they are willing to believe this completely insane narrative that the guy who was besties with Jeffrey Epstein, who has actively chosen to undermine the investigation, who's actively chosen not to release this information, is actually doing so because he's worried that people are going to call him a snitch. That is insane. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. The only way this makes sense in your mind is because you think Trump is infallible and you want to believe that he's on the right side on this. You cannot get yourself to believe that he was also involved with Jeffrey Epstein in a positive way.
This is exposure I don't need. And when the FBI came to him about Epstein, he says, I'll do whatever you want. I'll help you out. And they say, wear a wire, give us a list of names. What if Trump gave ledgers from his club to the FBI? What's going to happen to Mar-a-Lago when all of the people who spend their 20 grand, I think it's like 200 grand to sign up or something, maybe I'm wrong, but it's like 20 grand a year or something. What's going to happen when a bunch of these people find out that their names and private information were handed over to the feds as part of a criminal investigation into Epstein or to illicit activities? What if Trump was informing more than just Epstein? What if Trump was feeding the FBI information on tons of cases about prominent, powerful elites? That would be extremely bad for Trump's business and his dealings with powerful elites, so much so that he'd be like, we can't release this stuff. It would destroy my family's business, my legacy. If people find out that I was basically a spy for the federal government against powerful elites, the populace, his voter base might be like, wow, Trump was actually trying to stop bad people. That's not what the powerful people are going to think, though. They're going to think, destroy this guy. I want revenge.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't know how true this is. I'm interested in finding out more, but I will say this is actually it's more believable that he was an FBI informant than that he was a KGB informant, like it was asserted by what's his name. So
Jonathan Chait.
Yeah, Jonathan Chait. So I think that and also it would be a good thing because it would prove that he's more patriotic than Jonathan Chait would think as well.
I guess it's cool. It's cool to see like people just actively entertain hallucinations, like actively entertain like getting psychosis in an effort not to just like rip the Band-Aid off. That's what it is. We're watching. I wouldn't even say these guys are in a cult though, honestly, because like I think Tim Pool doesn't care about anything. I think he's just a grifter. Yeah. And I guess now they've moved on about the actual details that keep coming out about Trump's involvement, and instead going, oh, the Democrats don't even care about Epstein. They don't even care about his victims. That's why they were silent about it for years. The only thing they care about is concocting another fake scandal like Russiagate to smear President Trump with their lies. No one's falling for their BS. I don't know, man. Kind of feels like the you could say that under different circumstances, okay? You could prove that that is the case by releasing the Epstein files. Okay? Do you see what I mean? Because if you were interested in releasing the Epstein files, then you could just present to the Democrats the Epstein files and say, you see, this is what they didn't want you to see when they were leading the country, when they were the administration in charge. They didn't want you to see it, but we promised transparency as the Republicans, and therefore you're going to get it. You feel me? But they're not doing that. They're the ones who are actually holding out. That is the only reason why people have this kind of anger and resentment towards the administration, even those who are in the base of support. Hannah Gase jokingly says, Trump didn't know about Epstein, or he did, but he didn't know about his proclivities. Well, maybe he did, but he didn't share them. Actually, on second thought, everything Trump did was to catch Epstein for the feds. There is no birthday card. He didn't write that card. Trump couldn't write. He doesn't know how to doodle. He's not a diddler. But even if he is a diddler, he was diddling for good. And he was doodling for good as well. For a greater good. It's awesome. Yeah, they're going with this is a fake signature. Yeah, man, he changed his signature. At the time, this is how he used to sign things. That much is clear. In the early 90s, up until the 2000s, this was Donald Trump's signature. There are a million things that he has signed. People have actually shown that that is literally what his signature looked like back then. As a matter of fact, he signed so many public documents exactly like that, that if his signature was the current signature that he has, then it would be more of a sign that it might have been a fake document. So here we are. I've shown you this already, but it's, it bears repeating. There it is. A bunch of Trump allies are claiming that the Epstein birthday letter contains a signature that doesn't match Trump's. But there are a bunch of Donald signatures from the same era that look very much like the one in the Epstein letter. The first image is from the Epstein letter. Okay? This one is to Rudy Giuliani. This is another letter to Lillian Jane Volk. This one is a letter written to the Mr. and Mrs. Larry King. Kind of feels like this was his signature at the time. You know? The auto pen was signing all of these for me. Interesting. But I don't know. I feel like this stuff is supposed to make bigger waves, but I just don't see these dipshits responding at all anymore. I don't know. Hasan Reactions is one of the best ones in the React channel.